Welcome to Heartfelt Life Diaries. Today, we explore the poignant story of Naveen, a young man desperately searching for his true worth. Naveen lived in a vibrant and bustling village, yet his heart remained heavy, constantly weighed down by a deep sense of inadequacy. Everywhere he looked, he saw others who seemed happier and wealthier, their lives appearing to be painted with brighter and bolder colors. He looked down at his own rough hands and faded clothes, feeling a sharp pang of envy that pierced through his soul. His small home felt like a prison when compared to the towering mansions that belonged to the successful merchants living next door. Night after night, sleep evaded him as his mind replayed the images of others' success, making him feel incredibly small and insignificant. The weight of comparison was a heavy burden to carry, crushing his spirit and blinding him to the beauty of his existence. Realizing he could no longer live in this shadow, Naveen decided to seek wisdom from a renowned sage living in the mountains. The journey was steep and arduous, symbolizing the difficult path one must take to find clarity amidst the fog of confusion. Finally, he reached the summit and found the old master sitting in deep meditation, radiating a calmness that Naveen had never known. Naveen bowed respectfully and poured out his heart, confessing his jealousy and the constant feeling of being less than everyone around him. The sage listened without interruption, his eyes filled with compassion, before standing up and gesturing for Naveen to follow him inside. They walked in silence through the winding corridors of the temple, moving away from the light and deeper into the ancient structure. They stopped before a massive wooden door that looked like it had remained sealed and untouched by human hands for many decades. With a creak, the door opened to reveal a vast chamber filled with hundreds of mirrors, creating a labyrinth of infinite reflections. Naveen stepped inside cautiously, his eyes widening as he took in the strange and silent collection of glass that surrounded him. The wise master guided him to the first mirror, a simple frame covered in dust, and asked him to look closely. Naveen peered into the glass, but instead of his current self, he saw a reflection of the man he was 1 year ago. He saw a young man struggling to till the dry earth, his face marked by the sheer exhaustion of failure and uncertainty. He remembered those dark days vividly, realizing how far he had come since that time of struggle, hunger, and desperate uncertainty. The sage whispered softly, telling him that the only valid comparison is between who you are now and who you were before. You have grown, learned, and gathered a harvest that the old version of you could only dream of achieving in his lifetime. A sense of pride warmed his chest as he acknowledged his own hard work, momentarily forgetting the wealth of his neighbors. The master then led him deeper into the room, stopping in front of a collection of mirrors that were twisted and warped. Naveen stepped in front of the first curved glass and was shocked to see a reflection that was short, wide, and comical. He moved to the next one, and suddenly his image was stretched thin, making him appear weak, fragile, and unnaturally tall. He frowned at these distorted images, feeling uncomfortable seeing his true form twisted into shapes that did not represent reality at all. The sage explained that these mirrors represent the opinions of others, which are always distorted by their own biases and insecurities. Some will see you as too small, others as too much, but none of these reflections show the truth of who you are. Naveen realized he had been letting these warped perceptions define his worth, believing the lies instead of trusting his own reality. The master warned him that if he continued to trust these distorted mirrors, he would forever lose sight of his true value. He took a deep breath, feeling the heavy weight of social judgment beginning to lift from his tired and weary shoulders. Finally, the sage led him to the end of the hall, where a single, pristine mirror stood, shining with absolute clarity. Naveen stood before it and saw himself exactly as he was, with no distortions, no past shadows, just the raw truth. Beside his reflection, a faint shadow appeared, showing a version of himself that was stronger, wiser, and more confident than today. The sage pointed to the glass and declared that this is the only competition that matters, the person you are becoming. Your true rival is not the wealthy neighbor or the successful merchant, but the limitation you place on your own potential. He stared into his own eyes, understanding that success is simply the distance between who he was and who he wants to be. The time spent looking at others is time lost, building yourself. True victory comes from defeating your own laziness and doubt. Naveen turned to the master and bowed deeply, his face no longer clouded by envy, but glowing with a newfound purpose. He stepped out of the ancient temple and into the sunlight, leaving behind the dark warehouse of mirrors and his old insecurities. The walk down the mountain felt effortless, as if the heavy chains of comparison had been left behind in the dust. Returning to the village, he passed the grand mansions that once haunted him, but now he felt only peace and indifference. He looked at his modest home with love, immediately setting to work on improving it, focusing solely on his own domain. Day by day, he poured his energy into his own growth, nurturing his land and his mind with dedication and patience. His fields began to flourish under his care, reflecting the inner change that had taken root deep within his soul. Even the neighbors noticed his transformation, not just in his harvest, but in the quiet confidence that he now carried everywhere. Every evening, he asked himself only one question: did I take a step forward today compared to who I was yesterday? The difference was not in his wealth, but in his mindset. He had stopped chasing shadows and started building his reality. He eventually became a source of inspiration for others, teaching them that true worth is internal and cannot be measured externally. He no longer needed a magic mirror to see the truth. He saw his value in every small step of progress. The world continued to spin with its noise and chaos, but Naveen had found a quiet center of peace within himself. Remember, when you compare yourself to others, you are often comparing your difficult backstage reality with their perfectly curated highlight reel. Do not let the distorted perceptions of society twist your self-image. People only see what their own limited perspective allows them. Your only true competition looks back at you in the mirror every morning. Strive to beat that person and no one else. Like a tree that grows without asking if it is taller than the rest, focus simply on reaching for your own light. Gratitude replaced envy in Naveen's heart, and with gratitude came an abundance that no amount of gold could ever purchase. The mirrors of the past, the distorted views of others, and the illusions of inferiority all faded into the distant background. I invite you to start your own journey today, to look inward for validation, rather than seeking it in the world outside. Your life is a story that only you can write, so do not let the ink of others stain your pages. Naveen passed this wisdom to the next generation, ensuring that the chains of envy would be broken for those to come. When you focus on watering your own garden, you will eventually have no time to notice whether your neighbor's grass is greener. Years later, Naveen looked back not with regret for what he lacked, but with joy for the authentic life he lived. He laid down the mirror of comparison forever, choosing instead to reflect the limitless sky of his own potential and spirit. Let this be a reminder to be your own benchmark, to measure your success by the happiness and peace you cultivate. Imagine a world where we all focused on our own crafts and journeys, free from the toxic poison of constant comparison. The wisdom of the sage remains available to all of us, waiting for the moment we decide to seek true freedom. You have the power to break the mirrors that distort your reality and to step boldly into your own authentic light. Walk your path with conviction, knowing that every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory worth celebrating today. True wealth is found in these moments of connection and contentment, things that no amount of money or status can buy. Under the vast canopy of stars, our petty comparisons seem insignificant, reminding us to focus on the miracle of being alive. So stop living in the reflection of someone else's life and start embracing the beautiful, unique reality of your own journey. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who might need to hear this message of self-love today. Thank you for spending these moments with us, reflecting on the lessons that can change the way we view our lives. This has been Heartfelt Life Diaries. Remember, your only competition is who you were yesterday. Until next time, take care.